Okay, Boker Tov. Good morning, everyone. It's a fast day here, the 10th of Tevet. So the coffee and everything that we usually enjoy during our class is not going to happen today, but we will still be giving tzedakah and saying Tehillim. So if you have any tzedakah box, Gedol tzedakah shemikareves ha'geula, and we will say Tehillim. Just going to wait a few seconds as my friends join. Takes a while for it to get on, especially when it has to reach Italy and Israel. It's amazing what technology has done for us. Okay, we're going to say chapter Chaf, and today we're going to say it in honor of Leah Bas Pasya and Rivka Henya Bas Bracha Dvar Leah. We should see immediate miracles. No more testing of the Jewish people, and especially of this beautiful family who are shluchim in Virgin Islands. They want to get back to doing their shluchus. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Lamenatzech mizmar leDavid yancha dinar biyom tzara yisagefcha Shem Elahei Yaakov yishlach ezrecha mikodesh u'mitzian yisadeka yiskar kol mechazecha v'loscha yidash nesela yitein lecha chavavecha v'chol atzascha yimale nirana b'shuasecha u'v'shem Eloheinu nidgol yimalei Adonai kol mashalasecha Atay yidati ki Yoshia Adonai mishicho yaneu mishmei kocha begvuras yesha yimine Ela v'recha ve'ela v'asusin v'nachna v'shem Adonai Eloheinu naskir Hema karav v'nefala v'nachna kamnu v'nisodad Adonai Yoshia Hamelech Hanenu b'yom karenu. And good morning Susan and Rosalie, good morning Sophie and Helga and Becky, good morning. Adding on to Tehillim for Devorah Bas Rezela. And who else did I see? Rachel Bas Fega. Okay, good morning, Rosalie. Feel free to put in any names if you want us to dedicate today's class in their honor. Hello, Ingrid. Good morning. And, okay, so we're going to get started. Hello, Leslie. Good morning. Boker Tov. So we are finishing today chapter Aleph in Tanya. And it's very interesting because we spoke last week about the two nefashot, the two souls that each one of has, and that when we get a little bit worried or disturbed that we seem like, are we like schizophrenic? Like, why am I so nice sometimes and why am I jealous sometimes? Why am I so kind one day and I could be so nasty and abrupt one day? And it's like, what is going on with me? Oh, good morning, Ingrid, in honor of your mother's birthday. That's beautiful, Sonia. And what's her mother's Jewish name? And then we also have here Susan. So we say Shoshana Bela Bat Itazisa. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. So we wonder, how is it that one person could have such opposing personalities or drives? Like, it just seems so strange. And I'll tell you what happens. If we don't understand what's going inside spiritually, we become disillusioned with ourselves and we go, why am I even trying to be nice? I was such a jerk yesterday. Or why am I trying to be so kind to my neighbor? Yesterday I was so arrogant. So the Yetzer Hara says to us, don't put on a show. You know who you are. You're a very, very base, simple, not nice, pleasant person. Don't put on a show. And that's exactly what Tanya is going to dismiss. If the Yetzer Hara ever comes to you and says to you, don't put on a show, be so nice. Don't pick up the phone and invite those people. You never invite guests. You say to yourself, that's because I have two nefashot and I will always have a discrepancy, and that's normal and that's human and I can fight over it, and today I will be victorious over that nefesh Bahamas. So it's not like we ever give up. Good morning, Chana. Good morning, Nicole. It's not like we ever give up. Rivka. You know, there are two biblical women, so I confuse you all the time. So it's not like when we do something inappropriate and we want to change, that voice that says, don't try to become so godly. Don't pretend you're so holy. Don't make yourself like you're so nice. We say, no. Who I am is really my nefesh elokis. And my show is when I'm acting inappropriate. That's not me. The real me is my nefesh elokis. And that, to constantly remind ourselves every single day. I'm going to read you soon a story that happened to a family that we know. But the awareness that we are a nefesh elokis, that we are godly. Oh, we're discussing, are we a tzaddik or we a Beni Rasha? That is another conversation. But first we must know, as we open the Tanya, who I am. I have a nefesh elokis, a godly soul. Which neshama are we born with first? What do we get right when we're born? Which soul?
Godly soul?
No.
Animal soul.
The animal soul. That's the challenge. We are born first with the animal soul because that's nefesh habahamis is, we said, how does a baby behave? Very self-centered, very self-preservation, self-aggrandization, all about self-consciousness, because that's who we are right when we are born. When do we get our nefesh elokis? Anybody know?
When we start learning Torah. Like boys 13?
Oh, boys 13 and girls 12. At that point, that's why boys and girls at the age of bar mitzvah suddenly have to start keeping mitzvot.
Because until then, it's go everything to your parents.
But because why? Why is it going to your parents?
Because
you don't even have a godly soul. You don't have it. You have a nefesh habahamis. And that's your propeller. And that's why when children do things that are strange or selfish or chutzpahdik or wild, can we yell at them? Do we punish them? It's ridiculous. How are you punishing them? They don't have the nefesh elokis yet. You should know the whole child psychology would change if all the brilliant authors out there would understand that the drive that we have as a child is only the animal soul. So we're not fixing them. What we're doing is we're training them. So that's why, even though they don't have a nefesh elokis, we're still making brachas with them when they're babies. We're still washing their hands negavasser when they're babies. The cutest part is when you take a brand new baby and the tiny, tiny hands, and they're holding hands. You take their hands out, and with warm water, you wash negavasser. Now, they do not have to wash negavasser in the morning, but what are we doing?
Training.
We're training. The first 12 years, the first 13 years are training. We're not punishing. We're not yelling. We're not reprimanding. How are you reprimanding a child that made a mess or that they did something wrong when they don't have a nefesh elokis? What we could do is we say to them, oh, you spilt the milk. Even if it was on purpose, let's clean it up together. Milk is for people to drink. We don't waste Hashem's money. We don't waste Hashem's food. We explain to them. We don't say, that's so cute, you spilled the milk. That's okay. You don't have an nefesh elokis. No, we don't pardon them. It's 13 years of training, of chinuch. And then, boom, when they become bas mitzvah, they get right into it because they have been trained, so they're aware of the nefesh elokis. We're already speaking. Hey, good morning, Agnes. I wish I was that calm. Agnes, learning Tanya is not about saying, I wish I was calm. Learning Tanya helps us with the tools to be calm. What you're feeling is exactly what all mothers around the world are feeling. We all wish we were calm. I wish I learned Tanya then the way I'm learning Tanya now. I would have been so much of a better mother. And if my kids are watching it, I'm sorry. Okay. I did learn Tanya, but I didn't learn it with the depth that I'm now learning it myself. So it's like families who are expecting their children to become, let's say, great opera singers, or trying to become get Olympic medal. You don't start when you're 16, the year you have to go off to China to become the Olympic star. You start when they're able to walk. That's when you start. Why? So that when they're ready to shine, they've already been educated. When our children are internalizing the nefesh elokis, they've already been trained. We wash their hentelach negavasser. They said Shema, they kissed the mezuzah. 3-year-olds, immediately, they kiss the mezuzah when they've been trained from an early age. Say Shema, kiss the mezuzah. So they know that they're already getting ready for bed. Wake up in the morning, negabasser. This tzedakah box, it shows up in the toddler class. They've already been putting in tzedakah when they were babies. They take the coin, the pincer grasp that everyone's so focused on for education. Our kids know about it when they're 18 months old, when they're 12 months old. I remember putting my kid on the floor and sitting with him with tons of pennies, and they would just practice putting their pennies in tzedakah. A, they were learning to give tzedakah. B, as an educator, I wanted to improve their pincer grasp so they'll learn how to write when they get older. But it's all about training when they're young. So this Nefesh Elokis doesn't even enter chapter 1. You know why? Because it's not the first soul we get. That this whole chapter 1 is all about the animal soul. And explaining to us what it is. Know thy enemy. You know who you are. You know the drive. We spoke about Rivka had twins. You okay there?
Yeah, I think I have
an eyelash. Yeah. If you want the bathroom, it's over there, it's water. So just knowing what drives us, what drives our children, will allow us to become more aware and handle our challenges. So I don't know how many of you know, but hi, good morning, Raquel and Andy. Good morning, Karen, Lauren, Elise. Hi, hope everyone's enjoying their week off. I don't know if you're in Florida or where you are, but hi. So in 1985, we were just married a year. One of my husband's friends had been visiting a beautiful island called Curacao. Have any of you ever been there? Gorgeous island.
I'm sure in their 52 years they travel there together.
Sister island with Aruba, which is a little bit more popular. So we were invited to come to Curacao for Hanukkah, my husband and I. I had off school. I was teaching. I had off that week. And they wanted us to bring Judaism to the community there, Hanukkah celebrations, etc. And they were hoping for us to settle there, become shluchim in Curacao. So my husband and I packed up our stuff, all our menorahs. We took a lot of kosher food because there's nothing there. We arrived at the airport. I remember the first thing, my husband was so funny because my husband just got married like a few months before. He was still yeshiva bachar, but he was going now as a shliach. So we bought a tie, and on the plane, as we're landing, I'm helping him put on a tie. My husband goes, I don't know how to do it. I go, I know how to do it. My father's a businessman. I know how to do it. And for like an hour, I'm struggling. I have no idea how to put on a tie. So the tie looked very weird, but we were adamant. It was a maroon tie. Okay, we were adamant. We were arriving with the tie. We get to the airport, and this big guy welcomes us. His name is Louis Metch. Big man with a big heart and a big smile. And he goes, welcome to Curacao. And he takes my husband's tie and pulls it off and goes, on the island, no one wears ties. so that was the first welcome. And for the next 7 days, we had parties every night with children, with teenagers, with young adults, with young couples, with married couples as a community. And then Friday night, the people were like, well, you're here, let's do a Shabbaton. So I took all the food that I had bought and made a Shabbaton. Don't ask. Very little, we didn't eat, but we had chicken and different foods we bought. We had Shabbaton, and we met besides for this wonderful family, Metch, we also met a family by the name of Grossman. Now, what's the story of this guy Grossman? We met him and his son. In fact, he came to the hotel to pick up my husband in the morning. It was very hot. My husband walked a few miles to a little shul there. There's a big shul that everyone knows about, the sand on the floor. It's not an Orthodox shul. My husband went to daven in a little shul for a little Orthodox minyan, and he made it minyan that day. And I didn't go to shul, but this man, we became very friendly with him and his son. Now let me tell you the story about this man with the little son. So this man had a boy who went to, the only school that was there was a religious school, but not Jewish. And it was mandatory to go into the chapel for prayers every morning. Good morning from Puerto Vallarta. Okay, Sharon. Okay. Give regards to Curacao if it's nearby. Okay. Hope you're having a beautiful time. So, this boy was about 11 or 12 years old, and he refused to go to the chapel because I'm not praying to their God. So he refused to go in, and people were furious at him. The principal, the teachers, very, very angry about him, and eventually it started to really raise its ugly head there. They would tease him, they would ostracize him, they would beat him up, and eventually he started playing hooky. He wouldn't go to school. He told his father he was going. He'd go to the golf court, and he just couldn't see himself going to school. His father was called in. Where's your son? He's not coming to school. And the father says, what's going on? Why aren't you in school? He goes, I'm not going to school where they're going to beat me up. One night, his father had a dream. And in his dream, he sees himself as a 3-year-old boy sitting on his bubby's lap. And his bubby says to him, if you're ever in pain and you're ever lost, reach out to the Rebbe. So he, totally shocked. He goes, the next day he goes to daven in this little shul. And as he walks out of shul, he sees, this is in 1984, he sees a rabbi, looks like a Chabad rabbi. Black hat, the beard, it's a giveaway. And he says to him, what's going on? What are you doing here? This man's name is Rebbe Kotlarsky. And he says, this week, the Rebbe called me through Rebbe Chadakov and told me I must go visit Curacao. I am here in Curacao and I want to know. Tell me about life in Curacao. And he pours out his heart and he says what's going on with his son. Rebbe Kotlarsky arranged for this boy to go to camp that summer. And the next year he went to yeshiva. And today he leads a beautiful, from life with his family. But this man writes a letter to the Rebbe to thank the Rebbe for sending him Rebbe Kotlarsky. And he signs off a small Jew in Curacao. Now this, Mr. Grossman told us the story because that year we showed up. So it seems like, anyway, so the Rebbe writes like this, to Mr. Chaim Yosef Grossman, and here's the actual letter of the Rebbe, and here's the Rebbe's signature. I want to read you what part because it connects so much to the Tanya. He says, greetings and blessings. I was pleased to receive regards through our esteemed mutual friends. So it seems like Rebbe Kotlarsky gave over regards. I must, however, take exception to you referring to yourself as, quote unquote, a small Jew in Curacao. There is surely no need to emphasize to you at length that every Jew, man or woman, has a nefesh elokit, which is a part of godliness above, as explained in Tanya, beginning of chapter 2. Remember I said to you, chapter 1 does not talk about the nefesh elokis. It's going to be next week when we start. It's in chapter 2. There is no such a thing as a small Jew, and a Jew must never underestimate his or her tremendous potential. With the approach of Yom Tov Pesach, I take this opportunity to extend to you my grateful prayerful wishes that the festival of freedom bringing you and yours a freedom from anxiety, material and spiritual. And by the way, when you hear the Rebbe's letter, it is a bashert that you hear the Rebbe's letter today. So if any of you have any questions, this is your answer right now. From anything which might distract you from serving Hashem wholeheartedly and with joy. And to carry over this freedom and joy into the whole year, wishing you and yours a kosher and happy Pesach with blessings and the Rebbe's holy signature. So this is really what the Eibush is teaching us when he gives us a nefesh elokis. And it took the Alter Rebbe the depth to write this Tanya, to make us little Jews understand we're not little. How come we're not little? How come we're not little? What did the Rebbe say here?
You're part of God. You have the nefesh elokit. You can
so
be.
How dare do you call yourself little? You are you are disgracing Hashem when you say, "Oh, I'm just a little Jew." Wait. You have a piece of Hashem, and you're telling Hashem, "Nah, you're a little Hashem, and me is nothing. I'm still little." It's like someone gives you this beautiful, beautiful gift, and you throw it on the floor. You give it to your kids to play with. The gift giver looks at you and says, I just gave you this magnificent piece, and you're throwing it on the floor? You are not cherishing what I gave you. It's a disrespect. But it also comes from false humility. When a Jew says, I'm a nobody, I'm a nothing, that's not real humility. Because humility is when you say, I know my worth. I know who I am. I am a piece of Hashem and I can do anything. But my gift is from Hashem. So when someone compliments you and says, wow, the way you're raising your children, you are brilliant. And you say, yeah, I've gone to school, I have all these degrees, I take courses, I read books. That seems arrogant. But if you say, I know, thank you so much, I have so much opportunities. Hashem has given me so many opportunities to study and to learn and to read. I am so grateful to Hashem, right? Someone says to you, wow, you are gorgeous. And you go, thank you, Hashem made me this way. You sing so beautiful. Thank you, Hashem gave me the gift of singing. So just always recognizing where the gift comes from. You're not allowed to dismiss, it's actually a sin, to dismiss your talents and to shrug it off. If someone says to you, you are an amazing hostess, and the way you make up your Shabbos table with your dishes and your food, and you go, nah, I don't want to have any guests. I don't even know how to make a Shabbos table. My food's horrible. Is that humble? No. It's disregarding the gift Hashem gave you, and that is not okay.
Is it enough to say Baruch Hashem?
Oh, yeah, of course. You say Baruch Hashem. Because what are you saying? You knowing where your talent comes from. Mm-hmm. Being cognizant of where our talent and gifts come from is perfect. But dismissing it, we're not allowed. And here the Rebbe was very clear. He says, right away, that was the first thing he said. I take exception to you're referring yourself as a small Jew from Curacao. The Rebbe fixed it up right away. He eventually moved to Venezuela with his family, this man, and we never went to Curacao, only because at that point most of the Jews were leaving, and we would never be able to have a place for our children to learn. So we would have to send our kids away to learn at the age of 6, because it was before internet, before anything. But a few years later, about 20 years later, a shliach is there now in Curacao, and their kids do online school, and it works out. But this story really resonates with me because it's, I know the people, I know the community, and I know how beautiful they are, and yet the Rebbe would tell them right away that, just be aware of who you are, be cognizant. So last week we've really focused a lot on Rivka and the twins and knowing what that voice is and what that challenge is. But there are people that still, people who don't open Tanya, and people who are not aware of Chassidus. So there's 2 stories I want to share with you, just to elaborate on who we are and to impress on ourselves that the Nefesh HaBahamis is that word specifically. What's the word of Bahamis? What's the word? Behema. That it's not bad. That's something we have to realize. The behema is not bad. It's a matter of how you train it. Okay? Because the Nefesh Bahamis is also a source of opportunity to do a lot of good things. By the way, the behema, our Nefesh Bahamis, is our body. So imagine if the behema is sick one day. I can't give tzedakah. I can't go out and help somebody, right? My Nefesh Bahamis is my drive, drive to do it. So I need to just train my Nefesh Bahamis. Like I said before, training our children. So it's not like we want to get rid of it. I just want to train it. So there was 2 beautiful stories of an outlook of who we are. So there's one child who one day asks his dad, he learned in school about evolution, that where do human beings come from. So he was really like a little bit perturbed about that. So he says to his dad, hi Sharon, we miss you.
Florida, yeah.
Oh, you're in Florida. At least tell us where in Florida you are. Good morning, Arlene. Good morning, Giselle. Good morning, Marlene. Good morning. Okay. So this boy says to his dad, I'm learning this in school. Tell me where we come from. Father goes, no, you're right. Everything your teacher taught you is correct. We come from the apes, and we eventually evolved, and now we're humans. But we all come from the apes. That's evolution. He's like, even though he learned that in school, he's uncomfortable with that. So he says to his mom, Dad's telling me something about come from animals, and we evolved. What does that mean? So the mother says, well, I'll tell you where you come from. You come from Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. You come from Jacob. You come from your grandfather who was this, and your grandmother was this. So he goes, so how come Dad says that and you said this? She goes, He's talking about his side of the family, and I'm telling you about our side of the family. Ouch. But this is what happens when we teach our children according to science, and then they think, well, is that the truth? There was, this is a true story. There was a great rabbi, his name is Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, yeah. It was maybe previous generation. A rabbi, a teacher, he had a community. And the story is told that he was sitting on a flight on the way to Israel. He took his teenage grandson with him to help him. He's like elderly, he needed help to get things on and off from the luggage place. He needed someone to help him get into his seat, to put on his seatbelt. And he was frail at that time. So every minute the grandson had jumped up. Zaidi, do you want a sandwich? Zaidi, do you want your safer? Zaidi, should I put your hat up? Zaidi, are you cold? Do you want a sweater? And this boy kept jumping up and down for the Zaidi.
Regret taking.
There was a guy sitting next to him, affluent Jew, clearly not very, very religious, and he's just steering. It's a long trip to Israel. Eventually he turns to this man, and he says, I don't understand. If I had my grandson sitting here, he'd be sitting with his books and his technology. I mean, maybe he'd help me once. How does this grandson just nonstop help you? And he jumps up happily. He says, you believe in evolution? He goes, well, I'm a secular Jew. Yeah, I do. Like, I don't really believe in what you believe in. He goes, that's the difference. He goes, really? What's the difference? He says, when your grandson knows that you were 2 generations closer to evolution, right, to the animal, then who has to respect who? You have to respect him, because he's one step more to humanity, to sophistication. But my grandchild knows that I am direct descendant from Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, like you are, but my grandson knows that. He's taught that. So I am 2 generations closer to Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the holiest of the holies. So of course he respects me. And he wasn't saying it in an arrogant way. What he was saying is, where I come from, and where your grandson thinks you come from, I am looked up to in my family. But you are closer to the apes, so not such a respectful person. And this is exactly why we need to know who we are and our origin. We come from Adam and Chava. Apes, evolution, Big Bang is not part of our history. I know it's out there. I know people talk about it, but I don't believe it, because I have proof from my Torah that tells me exactly where I come from. And in that Torah, it gives me my secrets of who I am. My grandchildren respect me, not because I'm a grandmother that's 58 years old and deserves respect, but I'm a grandmother that had an nefesh kiss for longer than them. And I am connected to Yiddishkeit longer than them. And I'm connected to a Zayder and an Elta Zayder. And they respect not the person that is expecting respect. They're expecting what I stand for. I stand for Torah, I stand for mitzvahs. And when I can't tell you how many times I'll go to a wedding and I see such diverse scenarios unfolding. There are some families where you go to a wedding and the Zaidi and the Bubby are revered and holy, and they get to go up and give blessings to the Chatan and Kala, and they're the center of everything, and they walk around the Chassan and Kala together with the parents, together. And even though the walking around the Chassan and Kala takes 30 minutes, because you have a lot of old Bubbies and Zaidis walking, but nobody would dare think of having a chuppah without them underneath them. As opposed to going to a wedding where, hey, kiss, Bubby Zaid, and I sit in the chair and sit there for the rest of the wedding. Because you're just an old person, but you're not cooler. So it's a mind shift, and it's a total paradigm shift. Who are these Bubbies and Zaidis? They are enclosed with a nefesh elokis for way longer than me. They deserve that respect. You know, my mentee, that the last wedding that we just had, it was unbelievable. So it was Baruch Hashem, Mendy's parents and Mushka's parents, which is my husband and I. And then there was my parents, my husband's parents, Baruch Hashem, and Mushka's parents, and his parents. There was, I think, 12 of us, or 10 of us, walking around. And it took a long time because one of the Zaydis is Baruch Hashem in his mid-90s and walks very, 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 very slow. But the honor to have so many holy people under the chuppah bringing down blessings for this chas and kala was momentous. And that is an awareness. That is why we learn the Tanya. That is why. And so let's just wrap up. Okay, we're talking about like this. We're saying like this. The Nefesh Elokis has divine consciousness. The Nefesh Bahamis is animal consciousness. They want to do things that are very clearly animal goal oriented, which is fine, but we're going to learn that the Nefesh Bahamis, because it's the most active soul that drives us, our day-to-day will be taking that energy and getting him into line, right? So like, I'm eating a delicious Danish, I'm going to make a bracha on it. The Danish is from the Nefesh Bahamis. I'm hungry, give me a Danish. We don't have to deprive ourselves. And this is something that we have to remember. We're not in a generation we have to deprive ourselves for what is permitted. If the Danish is kosher, and you're, and it's pariv or whatever, and you're not dairy or meat, and you're making a bracha, not only is it okay, what have we done to that Danish? We've elevated it. So being cognizant of this Nefesh Bahamis throughout our day, aligns us with our godly soul. So it's like an example was Aristotle, okay? The big famous Aristotle. The story of this man who was a huge, brilliant, teacher and taught the world so much about therapy and etc., right? And all the psychology out there today. His students one day walked into his home and found him something very, very not godly or not intellectual or not that Aristotle was Jewish or but it was totally from this great person who meditated and taught such brilliance. And they walked into his house like, whoa! And he said to them, don't be so surprised. Now I'm not Aristotle the Great. Now I'm Aristotle the animal. This is a person that doesn't understand what is a godly soul. When I'm in front of the class, I act one way. When I'm in my privacy of my home, I act like an animal. A Jew is not like that. There's a new book my friend just printed called Holy Intimacy. I don't know if you heard of it. My friend is Rifki Slonim. And she, together with her cousin, Sarah Morozov, this book just came out about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. And I ordered on Amazon. It just arrived last week. I can't put it down. And what's the book called? Holy Intimacy. It's exactly what the Tanya is about. Intimacy, according to the world, is all about fun, sexual pleasure, physical. Torah says, yes, that's what it could be. But if you just insert holy, now you've elevated the Nefesh Bahamis. And that's the whole premise of her book. And her book is written to the lay person. My friend is brilliant, and her vocabulary, not even a Harvard professor could write a book on such leveled vocabulary. Literally. Get the book, you'll know what I'm talking about. You'll need a dictionary next to you. But the premise of the book, she talks to lay people. In fact, she has in it questions from a high school girl like, I'm 18 years old and I just want to have pleasure. I don't want to get married right now. What's wrong with just sleeping around? That's a question in the book. Very typical teenage question. And she answers it. And she answers it beautifully. Not in a degrading way, but I'm engaged and I really would like to not touch my fiance until I get married, but my fiance says just a little bit. What do you think? And she answers and explains. She's taking intimacy, which is supposedly very base, very pleasurable, very animalistic. And she says, no, it's now holy. And I'm going to show you how. So that's really the the end of Kapitel of Perek Aleph. And I'm just going to read how, in this book, how he ends off this chapter. He says, I possess two sorts of consciousness, two ways of interpreting the meaning of reality. My animal soul conceives the world purely in terms of sensory perception and visual and the empirical. Just very real, what I see is what I get. Since my five senses cannot directly experience the spiritual or the divine, my animal soul mistakenly views itself as possessing an independent existence from God and has a self-centered orientation. But my second soul, which we're going to learn next week, the divine soul, interprets the world through the more abstract lens of contemplation. It attempts to discern the truth beneath their deceptive appearance, believing that the direct experience of the senses is short-sighted. Its natural tendency is to be drawn to its source. So my Nefesh Elokis likes to be drawn to the source. It looks deep and higher than the animalistic stuff. The task, and he ends up here, the task of my divine soul, my Nefesh Elokis, is to enlighten my animal soul about its erroneous perception and to teach it the truth beyond its limited sensory faculties. So even children who do things like, eat food quickly without making a bracha or grabbing for what their friends have, that's fine, that's animalistic. And our job is to show them food is for sharing, food is to help you make stronger. I'm so proud of you when you make a bracha. Very gently, so that by the time they reach 12, 13, and notice what's something very interesting. When does a girl get her Nefesh Elokis? 1 year earlier.
I think
Why?
men should get it a little longer.
Later. They should get it at 25. Yeah. But you know what? Hashem knows that the woman, Bina Yisera Natna Leisha, we are more mature. We are ready for the Nefesh Elokis. That's why women mature earlier. That's why women have the responsibility to do mitzvahs earlier, because we are given our Nefesh Elokis a year earlier. So, if anybody has any questions, great to see you guys. We'll see you next week. Oh, and if you're fasting today, have an easy fast. Okay. I'm going to finish up over here.